I'm Maya Lau, and this is Other People's Pockets, the show where I ask people how much money they make and how their finances work so that the questions we all have about money can be a little bit less of a mystery. As always, please give this show a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen and watch, and follow me on Instagram and TikTok at It's Maya Money. Email me with guest ideas at otherpeoplespockets@gmail.com. My guest today is Quay Crowner. She's a longtime U.S. federal government executive who served at multiple agencies, including the Internal Revenue Service, the Government Accountability Office, and the Department of Education. The 55-year-old Maryland native was most recently the Director of Outreach, Impact, and Engagement for Federal Student Aid at the Department of Education, when she was put on leave and ultimately fired this year as part of President Trump's executive order to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, even though her job had nothing to do with DEI. I wanted to talk to Quay as part of a series I'm doing on how the Trump administration is affecting individuals' personal finances. Quay Crowner, welcome to Other People's Pockets.
Thank you, Maya. Glad to be here. I think I'm glad to be here.
Oh, why do you say that?
Just interesting topic. Just a myriad of emotions. I'm glad we have time. I'm glad we have time to talk about it all.
Yeah, me too. I wanted you to tell us, what was the job exactly that you had at the Department of Education? What was your role in handling federal student aid?
Sure. Director of Outreach, Impact, and Engagement was an opportunity for me and a small but mighty team of individuals from across the country who had an opportunity to not only take on casework, so they actually received complaints, concerns, questions, issues to be resolved within federal student aid. As we all know, navigating many government programs and systems and processes and tools is oftentimes a challenge. And so we were kind of that last place for folks to go to say, hey, I've tried these numerous things and I'm still unable to get either an answer or some type of resolution to my problem. But in addition to that, they received questions, comments, as well as data from states, both public and private institutions saying, hey, here is something that our communities or constituents need more information about. And that could include things like how to take advantage of the temporary or permanent disability forgiveness programs, or the public service loan forgiveness programs, or just how to come into compliance because of the myriad of repayment programs. So again, it was, a small group of 4 or 5 people there in the organization that focused on the community, the public, the challenges. And our primary responsibility was educating, but also getting those issues resolved on behalf of that individual.
And there are so many things that the federal government does, in this case, student aid, that people don't know about in terms of how do they access it? Do they qualify for the program? I can see the need for there to be a program to say, hey, we have the program, but maybe not the right people are learning about it or knowing how to navigate it.
Yeah, it's one of the few positions and offices that's actually mentioned by name in some separate federal student aid legislation.
How did it come to be that you were ultimately let go by the Trump administration?
It's still very much a mystery to me. I have a bit of a interesting story, but I think everybody's story is different. And I actually was on medical leave. I had an injury in May of 2024 that I thought was just a little bump on the head. I'd like to think of myself as a hard charger and pretty resilient. So this little bump on the head was nothing. Went back into the office a couple of days later, unfortunately had been diagnosed with a concussion.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, I'm so
and
sorry. What happened?
I actually was moving to my new position and cleaning out my office. Something fell off my desk, under my desk. I was smart enough to not just, lean over in the chair and go under the desk to try and pick it up to avoid hitting my head on the desk. and went around to the other side of the desk and bent over to pick it up, and unfortunately, there were some overhead cabinets that were there, so
Man, it's
yeah.
just like an office injury. You're doing your job. I'm so
I was trying
sorry.
to do my job. So, but again, a little bump on the head, which, ultimately was a concussion. And my doctor in August of last year said, look, you're not going to maximize the opportunity to heal. So the only remedy was what they called cognitive rest. And so in August, the doctor said, please shut it down. You're not helping yourself. And I talked to my leadership and they agreed my health was more important than anything. So I was on leave, medical leave, full-time medical leave starting in August of 24. After the inauguration, I mean, I think we all had some thoughts around what might occur, but started getting some text messages from some colleagues saying, hey, I'm hearing this, hey, I'm hearing that. And then, of course, I, like others, saw the news that showed the first round of individuals that were being put on administrative leave.
But as I understand it, yours was tied to the executive order dismantling DEI programs, but you weren't working on DEI.
That's correct. That is correct. So although, my colleagues received these email messages and in some cases showed up at the office and their badges didn't work, or they got to their desk and their technology didn't work, only for them to be in some cases escorted out of the building by security. um I got a phone call from a new manager there who had not been previously engaged with me at work and said, hey, the HR office is trying to get your personal email. And I said, aha, something's coming. And I believe that same day I received an email message saying that I was put on leave, citing the diversity, equity, and inclusion executive order. Um, I have 20, 30 years of human resources background, and this is a human resources process. So, of course, I immediately, flipped that switch on and I started to send the email saying, tell me what criteria was to use to determine that it was me. What criteria was used to determine my position or my unit or, who else or what other positions were similarly situated. Um, and I got a very nice message back, and they said, "Don't have any information about that. When we know, we'll send it to you." And of course, I've never received anything.
Could it just be that there was a thought that you're doing some kind of outreach, that you must be focusing on certain populations? I mean, did there seem to be any logic at all, or just we are just looking for people to get rid of?
Yeah, no logic. No, no logic. And the phone calls and text messages I received from other folks, we started to try and talk amongst ourselves to try and put in place some logic. What makes sense? What do we have in common? What offices did we come from? And these were people primarily in federal student aid, but across the department. The only conclusion that didn't make sense, but it was still kind of in line, I think, with where they were going, was we all at some point attended or participated in a diversity, equity, and inclusion training class. In some cases, people like me, I had not attended that class since 2019. So it wasn't anything that was recent. And also we were almost directed to attend this class. It was, not actually just a class, but a whole program that was designed by the department's leadership, that was even put into our diversity, equity, and inclusion plan as an agency with some targets and goals. So it was something that they expected us to do, yet it appears now that we may be being penalized for it.
And that would have been under the previous Trump administration.
Correct. Correct.
So What was that moment for you of realizing you were put on leave officially and then you were terminated? And what was that moment of realizing, okay, I don't have a job and where is the money going to come in for my family?
I think the feelings were all over the place. So it was, shock and awe, like, I can't believe this is happening. Um, it was also, I'm a career public servant and had, served in some space for 30 plus years. And retirement was gonna come at some point, but not now and not like this. Um, but there was also a little bit of relief because I had done some planning, so I knew it wasn't gonna be horrific. It was gonna be a challenge, but I knew it wasn't gonna be horrific, but there was so much unknown out there. I didn't know what it meant. And all of this, of course, trying to navigate while, I have some, migraine headaches and fatigue and cognitive challenges, so it was overwhelming. It was completely overwhelming. And I think the hard part also was trying to convey to my husband, what is all of this gonna look like for us as a family?
How much money had you been making?
Little over 200,000, which was, you know, a blessing, lucky, a gift, you know, uh I worked hard.
Yeah.
I enjoyed what I did. I've done this for, 30 years, and there were times, of course, where I made nowhere close to that. So, um, I know that people outside of Washington and outside of the federal government will say, "Hey, those folks, make too much money anyway." Um, but I feel like I worked for it. It was definitely not given to me. And I also can't remember a time over the last 10 years when I haven't been doing the formal role of at least 3 different positions.
Mhm.
So,
And how many years had you been at that 200,000-ish level?
approximately, I believe it was maybe about 4 years?
Mhm.
Maybe about
Yeah.
4 years.
And do you get any kind of pension now, or are you getting any money coming in?
I expect to, but I think because of the way this was carried out, it's kinda difficult to get questions answered about those types of things when you also are laying off people in the offices who are responsible for working through your benefits and, um,
Like, the
yeah.
people that you would go to ask, they're losing their jobs.
Correct, correct, correct. Or if they didn't lose their job, they may be looking to go to another agency where maybe there's a bit more stability for them, which I
Yeah.
which I
Or they're
completely
doing the job of
understand.
10 people and they don't
Yeah,
have time and yeah.
correct, correct. I had no access to any of my work files. So in some cases where maybe I had gotten some counseling or estimates or things like that before, they were sitting in my work folders, so I couldn't get access to them. It was tough. It was very tough.
And what has it been like at your kitchen table in your house talking with your husband about, okay, I don't know if I'm getting my pension. I should be, but I don't know when it's coming in. I know that I'm not getting my salary. Conversations about bills and responsibilities. What have those discussions been like?
I think early on, I tried to not be the alarmist because, my husband and I are very different. It takes me quite some time to move from a logical approach to things to being emotional about them. I try to be very methodical in my approach, um, because I know once I get to that emotional place, what's going to happen then. My husband is the other way, which is, you know, this is crazy. This is ridiculous. How did they do that? Makes no sense. So I took my time, I think, in preparing him. The first thing I said to him was, it is very clear that I'm going to be forced to retire and my retirement pension looks nothing like my paycheck. So, I mean,
It's gonna be at a much lower rate.
it's gonna go from, $200,000 to year to possibly 75,000, maybe $80,000. And I have no idea what this means for our life insurance and our health insurance, which I carry. So, that was enough for that conversation for him. I needed him to process that because, his emotional reaction was just as I said, and it was, "What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do?" And I'm like, "I don't know yet. I don't even know if this is real, what I'm saying, but we
Right.
can't not talk about it."
And does he have a job?
He does. He does. And again, the luck, the blessing, the whatever it is, he makes a little over $100,000 a year on a good year. He's in a different profession, so he is not a federal employee. He is a truck driver, but he does work for a major corporation. And so there is definitely stability in that. He's done that for well over 20 years with a good salary. But again, I mean, how many households these days can really function and function well, not having two stable incomes? I mean, it happens all the time. I'm sure it has to happen because not everybody is as fortunate as we are. But it is a change, and it'll be tough. It'll
Mhm.
be tough.
And I imagine the healthcare situation for his job is different. It's not maybe not as easy to just, "Oh, well, then he'll just get healthcare and he'll cover everybody."
I had to say, talk to HR folks, get the information, let's see what it looks like so that we can try to prepare. But the complicating factor for us also is, I have this injury that, switching healthcare oftentimes also means switching doctors. And I'm not in a position at this point where I can do that. So we've had to have the
Mm.
discussions about, whether or not out of my much smaller salary, I continue to pay, $1,200, $1,300 a month for our family health care coverage, or whether it's, I take my own and he picks up himself and my daughter. What are the options that are available so that I can keep continuity of care
Mhm.
for me?
And what are some of the biggest expenses, those biggest line items that you're like, "All right, we gotta," I mean, healthcare is one. I'm sure there's others that you're like, "No matter what, we can't stop paying this, and so how is that
Yeah.
gonna happen?"
Yeah, I mean, and healthcare is one, but believe it or not, it wasn't the first. And the first one was just keeping a roof over our head. Before any money goes out for anything, mortgage has to be paid. Mortgage is about $1,800 a month. What I didn't mention is we do have a daughter who is in college, and she's in her last year of college. And it's been wonderful in that I could use Maryland's 529 plan. And I did a good bit of preparation in preparing for those first couple of years. But then,
What is a 529 plan?
it is the college savings plan. And I had been contributing to that plan since she was 1 year old.
Mm.
Birthdays, I would ask, grandma and grandpas and others to, yeah, you can buy her a little something, but how about putting something in her 529 plan? I am grateful that we had the forethought to do some of those things because that took off a huge weight for us when she went away to college. And also she's out of state. So not just going to college, but the cost of out of state tuition for 4 years is is crazy. Is
Right.
crazy.
And so even though you have the 529 plan, you're still paying out of pocket for her to go to school.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And how much are you having to pay out of pocket for her school?
Well, the last year, last 2 semesters, we actually did student loans, and they were private student loans. And some of that was just the uncertainty around I didn't want to pull money out of my retirement, my 401k, and I didn't want to exhaust any savings because of that, because we needed to have, a cushion in case things like this were to happen and you don't get a paycheck for 3 to 4 months. So again, I'm glad that we didn't do that and we took out private student loans that we'll be able to start to pay back on her behalf and with her contribution when she graduates.
There's been a lot of discussion about how some of Trump's federal job cuts are disproportionately affecting Black women. And that's all the more significant because federal jobs have long been a gateway to the middle class for Black Americans. I'm just wondering if you can talk about that at all and what you make of that.
Uh, I agree 100%. The DEI cuts alone, and again, I can talk primarily about, my agency, but also I am here in Maryland. And I think the last quote I heard was about 15,000 federal workers across Maryland had lost their jobs to date. And when I talk to colleagues, whether it's, go to an event or look at something or, look at the data that is being shared across news outlets, um, not Black women, yes, but also women in general. I look at myself and, although my husband and I, of course, manage our household collectively, I brought in almost twice as much money. And so that is going to be a huge hit to how we manage our household. I mean, and that's happening to a lot of my former colleagues. Some of them are not retirement age, so they don't have the fallback of a guaranteed pension. And so they're dealing with, they luckily get some type of severance pay. But if you've only worked for the federal government for 5 years, your severance pay might be $20,000. And, you get $20,000 just like you would a regular paycheck. And then what?
Hmm. What was your path to working for the federal government? Was that an idea you had in your mind as a young person, or how did that work out?
Yeah. One of the few smiles you'll see on my face during this
During this
conversation.
very inspiring conversation about money.
Yeah, yeah. I come from a public service family. My parents were young when I was born. My father had a short army career, and when he left the army, he went to work for the civilian Navy here in Maryland. My mother actually also went in, I believe, as an intern, also working for a Navy installation here in Maryland. So I've seen it all my life. And not only did I have the opportunity to see my parents, but of course, you go to work every day and you make friends with the colleagues that are in your area. So I also had an opportunity to be around a lot of my parents' friends and their families and got to see public service in so many different facets. My father was a machinist, so he actually worked for the Navy in a machine shop, where they were working with tools and things in order to build things for Navy ships. My mother, on the other hand, was working in the human resources shop. So I've seen it all my life. There's public service, and then there's also community service, which is also a big focus in my family. So I kind of saw my path to the federal government career as a great combination of those two.
And how did your parents talk about money in the home where you grew up?
Um, a lot, a lot. I think we are very different than a lot of the families that I've, seen. And when I say a lot, it wasn't always the good stuff about money. It was oftentimes a here's what has happened that is not a good thing. Here is how we're going to work through it. And oh, by the way, let's talk about the lesson on the other end.
Mm.
Which is almost unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, it really is not a common conversation in many families.
Almost,
Where did
yeah.
they get that from? That confidence and that just openness about, you're the kid, but I'm going to tell you what happened in our family financially.
Yeah, I think on top of the struggle, I think it was one of the benefits of having young parents.
How old were they when they had you?
18 and 21.
Mm-hmm.
18
So they
and
were
21.
more close to being peers than
Correct. Well, it
I mean,
depends
I'm saying they're
depends
still
on
your
what the
parents,
conversation was.
but they're, oh, I know. But like they're not so much older than you than it's like talking to a grandparent or
Correct.
something. They're kind
Correct.
of, yeah,
Yeah.
generationally a bit
Yeah.
closer.
And also, I mean, I had a very close-knit family. So my grandparents, I mean, my grandfather, my maternal grandfather was at one point a taxi driver. He was also a World War II veteran. My grandmother was a domestic. They did not have any advanced education. I believe one finished high school and one did not, but there was always a focus on family and family care.
Mm.
So I can remember being younger. My mother, again, at 18, 19 years old, was working her internship job, but she also helped her older sister care for her children. I don't remember how old I was at the time, but I remember my parents having a very difficult conversation. First of all, they were young, they were Black, and they were homeowners, which was,
Mm.
almost unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I can also remember a time when there was discussion about the possibility of losing that house. And
Why?
I believe it was unpaid taxes or something, real estate taxes or homeowners taxes or something. But I remember the conversation. I remember it was something that I wasn't a part of the conversation, but it also wasn't hidden like this little dirty secret. I remember it was my parents talking to my grandparents. I remember my grandfather saying, you all have worked so hard to achieve this. There's no way in hell that we're going to allow that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk. Let's figure it out. And that's what they did. But I also remember being able to have that conversation with my mom to say, hey, what's going on? Are we going to lose our house? And my mother not just saying, no, baby, we're not going to
Mm-hmm.
lose our house. Go do whatever you were doing. Don't worry about
Mm-hmm.
it. It was really a conversation about how did we get here? What is the problem? What we're going to do to fix it. And then Dad and I have to talk about how we're not going to allow ourselves to get back in this situation again.
Mm.
So
I
I am
wonder,
so grateful. I'm so grateful for
yeah,
that foundation. I really am.
I wonder if that plays into how you were talking about you believe that you have a more logical, a little more cool-headed approach to money, and your husband has a different approach. And
He
that could
doesn't.
just be personality,
Yeah.
or it could also be upbringing.
I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think it's both. His family was not as open about money. Now, when we got married, I can remember myself saying, "Oh, we're going to do what I think every couple, at least early on, 20 some years ago, thought, which was, oh, you come together as a family, you have your joint bank account and everything. Everybody just throw their money in the pot, and here's how we pay the household bills." And I mean, we saw that too because we thought that's how it's supposed to work. And
What's
that's
mine
probably,
is yours. What's
yeah,
yours
yeah,
is
yeah.
mine.
Oh, that's a crock. Uh, it's a crock.
How old were you guys when you got married?
Uh, oh gosh. It was the second marriage for both of us. So I was 32. He was 33. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
32 and 33. Um, And second marriage for both of us, so we're like, we're gonna do it right this time.
Mm.
We didn't do ourselves or our partners well. So what did we learn from those relationships and all that? I mean, we thought we were doing it right, but I think we very quickly learned that it sounds good, but it's not always workable in practice
To have a shared pot
to
of
have a
money.
shared right.
Why is it not workable in practice?
Um, but I mean, we still have very different approaches to money. I am the saver, so not extreme saver, but I am the saver and I'm the planner, and I want to make sure that things that unfortunately came to fruition, that we are not wiped out and just completely devastated. My husband is, but Quay, we work hard and we should be able to enjoy, the fruits of our labor. And so, he's the Harley rider and he's the, so I'm the person that says, okay, I get it, but why can't we have both? Why can't we
Mm.
do a little bit of this and a little bit of that?
Mhm.
Um, and then I think we started talking about it so much, and in some cases arguing about it so much, it was just like I finally brought to the table, let's just talk this out. Maybe this isn't a good idea. How about we have the yours, the mine, and the ours? We agree on what are shared responsibilities and what that sharing looks like, because sharing is not always 50-50. I recognize that I made more, therefore I wanted to be able to fairly contribute more to certain things. But, my sharing more may not be I'm going to pay more for the vacation. It may be I'm going to pay more towards tuition. Um,
Mhm.
so we had to have those detailed conversations, but then it also gave us the freedom to say, hey, I'm going on a girls' trip. And so bills are
See ya.
paid. Yeah. Bills are paid. The girls and I are going to Aruba or whatever it is, and we're going to spend a couple of days. We're going to do some spa treatments and have a good time. And he says, well, great, have a good time, because he knows,
Right.
you
All the
know,
main things that you need to pay together are paid. It's not
correct.
coming out of somewhere. It's your own money that he can't
Correct.
say anything
Correct.
about.
And
Yeah.
then he can say, and I can encourage him actually, because I'm very much, as you can tell, when I have the energy now, I'm the extrovert. So I love to talk and I love to have a good time and I love, spending time with friends and family. And he's very much an introvert. So if hopping on his Harley and going on a road trip is his thing, I can say, you got the money. Plan it. Go for it. Book your hotel. Go and enjoy yourself.
Mhm.
And you don't have to feel bad about that at all. So,
Mhm. What is something that you indulge in?
oh, oh. Um, I'm a foodie, so I love a great meal, oftentimes with friends, but I'm not opposed to having a great meal alone. I love I love a great food environment. I think the other thing is my occasional my girls get-togethers. So I have a wonderful group of 6 girlfriends. We range in age between I'm the baby of the group, by the way, at 55.
Mhm.
55 to 82, I believe it
How
is.
did you all meet?
There was one coworker of mine at work who introduced me to another, and that person introduced me to 2 of her other friends. One of our friends has been talking for the last couple of years about, okay, we've done a lot of these Caribbean like trips. Well, how about we go to the vineyard next year? Places they have gone that others of us have not had an opportunity to experience. So I will spend a bit of money to be able to have a great hotel experience or a great, Airbnb experience. And we want to be able to have massages and whatever else we want to do while we are there. So
What's
instead
an
of
amount that feels like, oh yeah, that's a reasonable amount to spend on a great girls' trip?
2,500, 3,500 in some cases, depending on where we're going.
What does enough look like to you?
Oh, enough. I know that vacation sounded like a lot, but I'm pretty simple. I'd like to have another car. My car is a little dated, but I also know that I don't need a new car. So where my husband says, you've been driving that car for the last 7 years. Why don't you go ahead and get a new car? You deserve the upgrade. And I'm like, yeah, I do, but do I really need it? So I think that car for the moment is enough for me.
Quay Crowner, thank you so much for being here on Other People's Pockets. I really appreciate your candor, and it's been great learning from you. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you for having me, Maya.
Other People's Pockets is written and hosted by me, Maya Lau. I produce the show along with Kristen Torres, who does booking and research. Thank you to Pushkin Industries for past production support. Please follow or subscribe to Other People's Pockets on your platform of choice. And see you next time.